welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something you've definitely seen, and let's be honest, you've probably done yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Our sources flag it as one of the most high-risk things we do,
Yeah.
without a second thought. That decision to just cut through a gap in traffic, mid-block crossing.
A small shortcut.
A small shortcut, exactly. We're trying to save, what, 30 seconds? Avoid walking 100 feet to a crosswalk?
Right.
But our mission today is to show you why that 30-second decision is really a complete breakdown of how road safety is supposed to work. We're going to unpack the risks, the legal side of it, and the psychology of why we do it.
And then the solutions.
And the solutions. The core danger, and the sources are really clear on this, is that these gaps in traffic put you directly in a lane of moving cars where the driver has absolutely zero expectation of seeing you. That means no reaction time.
And that's the recipe for disaster right there.
Okay, let's unpack this.
And we should look at this not just as a safety issue, but, a systems issue. Congested traffic creates these little pockets, these opportunities for pedestrians.
Right, they look safe.
They look safe, but they are so deceptive. The sources really emphasize that because of the loss of visibility and the fact that you have no protection, even a car moving at, say, 25 miles per hour.
A moderate city speed.
The totally normal city speed, yeah. A collision at that speed can cause just devastating, life-altering injuries. So we're looking at the immediate risk, but also how our cities need to evolve.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, the physical mechanics of it. Why is stepping out from between two stopped cars so fundamentally different from using a crosswalk?
It really all comes down to sightlines and geometry. I mean, when a driver is moving, their focus is ahead, they're watching signals, watching the cars around them.
The expected things.
The expected things, exactly.
Yep.
If you, the pedestrian, are standing behind a big object, a box truck, a bus, even just a modern SUV.
Which are huge now.
They're huge.
Yeah.
You are completely, totally invisible to that oncoming driver. You are removed from their active visual field.
The sources call this the unexpected entry.
Mm.
And I guess with bigger cars, that blind spot is just getting wider and wider.
It is. And drivers, they rely on predictability. They're trained, conditioned even, to expect people crossing at designated points. So when a person just appears mid-block, it's not just a surprise. It shatters their entire anticipation pattern.
It breaks the system.
It breaks the system.
Yeah.
And that sudden appearance is the #1 cause of these collisions because it just eliminates the milliseconds the brain needs to see danger and then, hit the brake.
And on the pedestrian side, we're just as flawed, right? We think we're saving time, but we also make these terrible judgment calls.
Oh, awful.
We think we have quick reflexes, and we seriously underestimate how fast that car in the far lane is actually going.
Or how long it takes a 2-ton vehicle to come to a stop.
Right.
And what's fascinating here is how that lack of visibility, it directly determines how bad the outcome is going to be. If a driver can't see you until you're already in their lane, well, their reaction time is basically 0.
So the stopping distance they need is huge.
It's huge, which means the speed at impact is much higher. And higher speed means a massive increase in the force that hits the pedestrian. We're talking critical injuries, head trauma, internal bleeding, serious fractures.
And there's also the risk of a second impact, which is just horrifying to think about.
The multiple impact risk, yeah.
If you get hit on a road with multiple lanes, that first impact could throw you directly into the path of another car.
A car that has even less time to react than the first one. You haven't just created one dangerous situation, you've kicked off a potentially devastating chain reaction.
So the immediate danger is obvious. But let's look at that ripple effect you mentioned. What happens behind the car that just slammed on its brakes? We're not just talking about one pedestrian and one car anymore.
No, now you're talking about a potential multi-vehicle catastrophe. That sudden hard brake from the lead car is, it is the textbook cause of a rear-end collision.
And if they swerve?
Well, if they swerve to avoid you, which, by the way, the sources say you should not do, they risk hitting a car in the next lane or, even worse, veering into oncoming traffic.
So the person who decided to save 10 seconds has now put dozens of other people at risk.
Precisely. They've initiated a chain reaction of risk.
And what about the driver's mental state? The sources talk about this increase in cognitive load.
That's a really important point. Cognitive load isn't just, feeling stress. It's about how many things your brain is juggling at once. Speed, distance, signals, the car next to you.
All the inputs.
All the inputs. When a pedestrian just pops out, that load spikes.
Yeah.
Instantly. And it can cause this fixation, this tunnel vision. You get so focused on the immediate threat that you stop being aware of the car that's tailgating you.
And I imagine if that happens over and over, day after day on your commute.
It doesn't just cause stress. It builds frustration. It can even lead to more aggressive driving across the board.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I think the liability part is what will surprise people the most. Most of us just assume, car hits person, driver's at fault, end of story.
That is a huge misconception. The sources are incredibly clear. That is very often not the case here.
So jaywalking isn't just about a small ticket.
Far from it. In the eyes of the law, crossing outside a crosswalk or against a signal is illegal in many places. If an accident happens while the pedestrian is, breaking that law, they can be found mostly or sometimes even entirely at fault.
Okay, so let's play that. A pedestrian steps out. Car A slams on its brakes to avoid them, and Car B rear-ends Car A. The pedestrian wasn't even touched. Who pays for the damage?
This is where it gets legally very complex. If that pedestrian is found to be the proximate cause of the accident, they can be held liable for the damages to both of those cars.
Yeah.
And any injuries. So a small fine for jaywalking suddenly transforms into, potentially ruinous civil liability. It can wipe out their own chance for injury compensation and force them to pay for everyone else's damages.
And it still messes up the insurance for the drivers involved.
Oh, absolutely. It complicates everything and can still lead to higher premiums, even for the driver who did the right thing and avoided hitting the pedestrian.
It just seems so absurd that people risk injury, death, financial ruin, all to save a few moments. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why do we calculate this risk so badly?
It's the human element, right? The number one reason, as you said, is just convenience, the shortcut bias. The research shows that if a proper crossing point adds more than about 2 minutes of walking to your trip.
2 minutes. That's it.
That's it. Roughly 400 feet. The vast majority of people will just take the direct route, no matter how dangerous it is.
That feels like an incredibly low threshold when you stack it up against, getting hit by a car.
It is. And that leads you right into the psychological biases. The sources talk about familiarity bias.
I do this every day.
Exactly. I do this every day. Nothing's ever happened. The more you get away with it, the more your brain just minimizes the risk. You start to think, I know this street. I know how fast the cars go.
Which pairs perfectly with overconfidence.
Oh, completely. We all tend to believe we have better judgment, quicker reflexes than the average person. We think we can dart across before that gap closes, but we're ignoring physics.
Right. Braking distance is a constant. Doesn't care how confident you feel.
Not at all. And then you have to add in the modern problem of distractions.
Phones and headphones.
Mobile phones, noise-canceling headphones. They are huge risk accelerators here. They take away the auditory cues, the sound of an engine, a horn, the squeal of brakes that are so critical in that split-second decision. The pedestrian is basically walking into traffic in a sensory vacuum.
So that leads us right into the systemic problems. It's not always just people being impatient. Sometimes the city's design is almost forcing them into it.
Absolutely. The infrastructure is failing them. When planners design these huge, long city blocks a quarter mile between traffic lights, they're basically sending a message to pedestrians.
And that message is, you don't matter.
You're an afterthought. Poorly maintained sidewalks or crosswalks that are in really inconvenient places, they actively encourage people to just cross mid-block.
And the sources point to specific areas where this is worse, right?
Yeah, these prone areas. It's where you get that combination of lots of foot traffic and time pressure. So downtown areas with long blocks, obviously, but also university campuses where students are always rushing to class.
And they feel safe. It's familiar territory.
Exactly. Or public transport hubs. People rushing to catch a bus or a train, their risk assessment just goes out the window. And construction zones are a huge problem, too, because the detours often leave no clear, safe path for people to walk.
So you have this vicious cycle. The bad design creates the inconvenience, impatience leads to the risk, and familiarity makes that risk feel normal.
It feels safe. That's the core caution for city planners. You have to address both the behavior and the environment. Education and enforcement are important, but they're kind of temporary fixes. The permanent solution is redesigning the environment itself.
Okay, so let's pivot to the practical side, the immediate protocols. Given this dangerous environment, what are the real, actionable steps to stay safe?
Right.
Let's start with the pedestrian.
The foundation is always use the marked crosswalk. But, when you have to interact with traffic, the advice is to use the left-right-left scan and keep scanning as you cross. Don't just look once.
And the sources really stressed eye contact.
Vitally important. Actively seek eye contact with the driver. Seeing their face and getting that nod, that confirmation that they see you, that is the single best sign you have. And please, put the phone away. Take the headphones off.
Simple enough. Now for drivers. A pedestrian suddenly appears between two parked cars. What is the safest, most controlled thing to do?
Okay, number 1. Resist the instinct to swerve. It's a natural reaction, but it's dangerous.
Maintain your lane.
Maintain your lane and focus on controlled, gradual braking. A sudden slam on the brakes causes that rear-end collision we talked about.
What about the horn?
Use it, but briefly and gently. It's an alert, not an attack. The main priority is just stopping safely without creating a second or third hazard.
So looking at the bigger picture, the community solutions, how do we start to design this problem away?
The key phrase the sources use is traffic calming measures. It's all about designing roads to force cars to go slower by design.
So you're changing the physics of the road, not just putting up a sign.
Exactly. You use things like neck downs, which are curb extensions that narrow the road at the crosswalk. It shortens the crossing distance and makes drivers slow down to turn. Or chicanes, which are little curves built into a straight road to stop people from speeding.
Things you can't ignore.
You can't ignore them. The infrastructure itself becomes the safety feature. And you have to couple that with smarter design. Put in more frequent, high-visibility mid-block crosswalks, especially in those prone areas like campuses. Put in flashing beacons.
And technology must have a role to play here.
A huge role.
Yeah.
Things like pedestrian detection systems, smart traffic lights that can, automatically extend the crossing time if they sense someone is still in the crosswalk.
And then there's enforcement. If a city is going to ticket jaywalkers.
They have to do it as part of a balanced approach. You can't just punish the behavior without providing a safe, viable alternative nearby. Otherwise, you're not encouraging safety, you're just discouraging walking altogether.
So what does this all mean? I think this deep dive really shows that cutting through traffic is this perfect storm. It's where our psychological biases crash right into engineering failures. And the result is a situation that cripples driver reaction time and, surprisingly, opens up the pedestrian to some serious legal and financial trouble.
Right.
So fixing it really requires communities to make these deep systemic changes to road design, while all of us as individuals have to stay vigilant.
And the sources were so clear that a pedestrian who causes an accident can bear significant liability. This really brings up an important question for the future.
Okay.
With the explosion of technology, I'm talking about high-definition dash cams in every car, citywide sensor networks, smart infrastructure that can map every movement, how will this massive amount of new digital evidence change how we determine shared fault in these incidents? Will it become almost impossible for pedestrians to argue they weren't the main cause when the data can show the exact millisecond they stepped off the curb? It's a legal challenge that's unfolding as we speak.
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.